From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wow Report. I'm Fenton Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder, joined by the marvelous James St. James. Woo! And our Chief Creative Officer, Tom Campbell. And we're doing what we normally do, counting down the top 10 things of the week that made us go wow. And Blake is here too.
Hi.
Yeah.
You seem to have sort of vacation brain. Is that what's happening here?
Oh, really? I'm being that sort of doolally. No, I don't think I do. I think I'm trying to switch it up, make it feel real and fresh, like doing it for the first time.
After 9 years, we're trying to make it fresh.
But I tell you what we should do. We should begin the countdown at number 10.
Number 10.
June, as we know,
busting out all over.
and as I take for granted, is Pride Month, right? And it's something. I live in West Hollywood. I work at World of Wonder. I'm, in the center, in the heart, at the pulse, the very pulse of queer existence. And yet I realize that I take pride for granted. And I'll tell you what made me realize that. Watching a documentary that was made in 1977 that I had never seen, that was restored in 2019. It's by a filmmaker named Arthur Brezin, and it's called Gay USA. James, I mentioned this and you said you saw it too.
I watched it this weekend and I was blown away. And as you talk about it, I will sort of
Yes.
chime in a little bit. I didn't go into it with much expectation. I thought, a documentary about a Pride March in 1978.
Where can you watch this? I saw it was streaming on Plex.
Turner Classic Movies.
Okay.
Turner Classic Movies, which I have to give a shout out to Turner Classic Movies and QVC, honestly, who are both making airtime about Pride and June to audiences that I think are very across the spectrum, and they're being very vocal about Pride. But Fenton, have you ever heard of Arthur Brezin?
I have not, and I thought you were going to talk about that documentary Queen.
Also playing in Turner Classic Movies, also but 10 years earlier. Arthur Brezin was a filmmaker, an independent filmmaker, and a gay pornographer in that way that you guys so brilliantly explore in Inside Deep Throat. When independent film and pornography were...
I thought you were going to say...
I thought you were going to reference our hardcore hits.
No.
What was it? Spunk that we did?
God, James.
He made a short film in 1972 about coming out. And then he was inspired by that. And then in 1977, he cruised to 5 different cities, 25 different camera operators, all under his supervision.
Wow.
And the whole thing cost like $8,000. And it was done in they edited it in 2 months.
That's what they said. They did it at the Pride parades in June, and it premiered at the Castro Theater in August. That is how fast the turnaround for this was.
But how did they do it for so little money?
Because it is the most elementary way to do a documentary. And Fenton, it was so powerful. It makes me question everything about storytelling, because it's basically huge wide shots and then man on the street interviews. And then every now and then they play like an independent gay song that would normally make me cringe, that were all so beautiful.
It was like trees and puppy dog tails and like hippie music, right? Like hippie
with gay themes, and just,
it's so funny because to me, I think of hippies as being dirty, greasy, ugly, just horribly dressed with that straggly hair and zits all over their face, pimples everywhere. And these were the cutest damn hippies I have ever seen. I swooned at boy after boy after boy on the street. You just had these wonderful shots of all these people arm in arm, walking down the street, hugging, kissing, in various states of undress. And they were all beautiful 70s angels who probably did not make it through the 80s.
Well, I was going to say, to give it context, and I know we know this, but it's all hit me like a ton of bricks, which is 1977 was 8 years after Stonewall.
It's also the year of Anita Bryant, which was a galvanizing. It's
my story. And then it's 4 years. It's 4 years before the first account of AIDS. It's right in that pocket. And thank you, James. It was the marches were especially vibrant because the Dade County Anita Bryant thing was going on. It also inspired the filmmaker to say, some of my friends feel so ashamed by this movement that I wanted, make this documentary. And they show both sides, and they're just talking to people. And it feels like people were much less savvy about being filmed. And at the same time, people were much more articulate. So people are just sort of talking from their heart. And it ripped me apart. It's so beautiful. There's nothing sad about it, but it's amazing how much things have changed and how much things have not changed.
Can I interject here? Because there is a scene very early on where they're talking to an older woman. They're talking to an old lady who's probably in her 70s, probably early 80s. And she's a straight woman. And she says that she's here to give support to the gay movement. And she says, but it's not just the gay movement. It is the women's movement. It is about human rights. And she says that what's happening right now with abortion rights, where the Supreme Court has taken away abortion rights, states' rights, and poor women have to go to other states to get abortions while the rich can get their abortions anytime. It's like it just hits you like a ton of bricks that the more things change, the more they are the same. And that quote could have been taken from today.
Yes.
It is like it could have been ripped from this week.
And there was a feeling that liberalism was sticking together, helping each other, versus now where we talk sometimes about the circular firing squad, where you're not supporting trans enough, you're not supporting bisexuals enough, you're not supporting women enough. It's 70 something minutes. It's just really beautiful. And it made me think, Fenton, I know it's bygone, whatever, but like, just put a camera in front of people's faces and let them talk.
You are so right. You are so right, because I think documentary making has got really fancy, and that's fabulous. It's become movie-like, but at some point also nothing beats just filming someone, right?
And what you said about how you'd have these giant wide shots of just 10,000 people marching down the street in San Francisco, Philadelphia, New York, wherever. And then you zoom in onto just these angels who, like I said, probably did not make it through the 80s, a good 80% of them. And it just hits you like it was such an eye-opening experience for me to watch this documentary.
And there's also, there's also a sequence where someone's talking about the history of gay people, and they bring up, Nazi Germany and the Holocaust, now the introduction of the pink triangle and what it meant. So he just was so simply and adeptly, he purposely did that in interviews I've read afterwards, just to give people some context of their gayness and how we have been dealt with before. So
there was also a good ping pong back and forth. There was a drag queen, and then there was a feminist, a lesbian who was anti-drag, saying that it was making fun of women, and the two of them explaining their different points of view. And neither one was right, neither one was wrong. It was just interesting to see how they did this. It was just fascinating.
And someone identified as pansexual. It was like, he goes, well, I'm not really homosexual, I'm not really heterosexual, I'm in between. Like, it just seems so casual and not like politicized, and just like, it was such a beautiful thing. Anyway, and the lesson learned for me is I need to go to Santa Monica Boulevard and stand in the hot and watch the same thing to honor those people who in 1977 and the years before took their life and their reputation, everything else on the line to say, we're not going to take it anymore. It really profoundly affected me.
Beautifully put. And do you think, this Pride Month seems a little sotto voce in terms of some of the marketing and some of the brands that, are doing Pride related products, right?
It's interesting that, the way we have regressed so fast, where, 5 years ago, we were saying how cynical it was for Target and beer companies and stuff to be jumping on the LGBTQ bandwagon to sell beer to target us. But now they've all pulled back out of fear, and now we're angry with them for that. So it does sort of seem like...
Well, that's one of the great things about being gay. There's no pleasing us.
Right. But I'm going to try to wash my cynicism and represent,
just always bring the innocent and the joyful and the positive, I must say, except for last week when you were in that. All right. So that is Gay USA, streaming on Plex and also on Turner. Is it Turner? Turner Classic Movies? Right. Okay. James, number 9.
Number 9.
I did this one for you, Tom. Remembering Gene Wilder on Netflix, a documentary that is new to Netflix, and it is so sweet and so wonderful. And I just kept thinking, Tom needs to be here with me watching this because it's such a feel-good documentary. When you think about Gene Wilder, I mean, you just get gooey anyway. He was just such a wonderful, wonderful man. And you think about his career right off the bat. His first movie was Bonnie and Clyde. His second movie was The Producers. Then in very short order, he did Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, Silver Streak, Stir Crazy. I mean, just blah, blah, blah. I mean, just one after the other. And then you have this sort of series of movies that didn't really do well, but should sort of be revisited again, like Haunted Honeymoon, if you remember, with Gilda Radner, where he met Gilda Radner, and Dom DeLuise in sort of high Edwardian drag, and they're singing Ball and the Chain. I mean, it's so good. It's one of those 5 people alone in a house and they're getting killed, haunted house. Da, da, da. There's The Woman in Red and Hanky Panky. So good. He did this whole sort of series of movies that didn't really go anywhere, but he was writing and producing and directing them. Then, of course, Blake.
Q Blake.
Hey, Blake.
When he was on that season of Will and Grace, where he was Will's boss.
That's
yeah, totally.
So he has this career that just goes from the 60s to the 2000s. And then
I'll just say there's nobody like him. Like, I'm trying to like connect him to someone like, he's just like, he's so profoundly unique in his,
and they talk about what a shy introvert he was, but sometimes he just loses it in the roles, and he's bananas, he's just berserk. And then about 3/4 of the way through, he meets Gilda Radner, of course, and they marry, and within months she's diagnosed with cancer. And that is it's one of the great love stories of Hollywood. And it's so sad. And he loses her, but then he manages to find love again. And the last 20 years of his life, he was with a wonderful woman who's interviewed, and she took care of him and loved him. And then he ends up having Alzheimer's, and we sort of go through that. But it's a fabulous documentary, and it's just to see. There's so many clips from all these, Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles and The Producers, Springtime for Hitler. And
he's forever Willy Wonka to me.
Forever Willy Wonka. Yeah, I mean, you can't. Yeah, and then he's narrating for some of it because they were doing a project where he was going to do his own, documentary. So they have that. They have interviews with him all through. They have like Zero Mostel. They have, everybody is interviewed in this, and old footage with Gilda. So it's really something, and I recommend it to everyone.
Oh. Wow. That is Remembering Gene Wilder on Netflix, streaming on Netflix. Okay, number 8.
Number 8.
There's a theme here. There is definitely a theme. DVF, Woman in Charge.
Wait a minute, I thought it hadn't premiered yet. How did you see it?
It's streaming on Hulu. It just dropped on Hulu. And I've been waiting to see this for a while.
Because you're friends.
You work with DVF on the Exile, the mother of exiles.
We did, and there are some overlapping elements insofar as she talks about her mother being very movingly about being in a concentration camp survivor and being told that she would not be able to give birth, but she has Diane, and she's says, "You are my torch of freedom. You are the gift of life." And that had a profound effect on her. Not necessarily initially, but as her life has gone on, it's something to which she has returned again and again. And this is, Diane, I think, is known to the general public for the wrap dress, for the Studio 54 era, for being very pro-women. And in many respects, this documentary delivers on that. And that's fine. I have to say, I sort of do feel if I hear one more thing about Studio 54 being so wild and free, I will commit murder, because it's just it's hard for people to say something new about Studio 54. But
as we learn time and time again with
But then about halfway through, the documentary takes a turn, and it talks about Prince von Furstenberg, who of
Egan.
course she married. How did you become a princess? She's like, I married a prince. And oh my goodness, Egon von Furstenberg, so good.
Was there ever anyone hotter in the 70s?
I don't think so.
And the two of them together must have been a knockout when you saw them. You must have just gasped for breath.
And you hear about some of the shenanigans, like she turned down David Bowie and Mick Jagger for a threesome, which that's kind of a good story, because you get the sort of the name droppiness of it, and then it's like, no, thank you, I'm not going to. But then, of course, AIDS comes along, and that's the end of all that. And she talks very movingly about her mother having a breakdown. So after being in this concentration camp, giving birth to Diane, being told she couldn't have a baby, decades later, the trauma catches up with her and tells this incredible story about her mother was in Germany staying in a hotel with her husband, and the husband woke up and she wasn't there, Diane's mother. Maybe you know the story. They found her hiding under the front desk, and she basically had a complete breakdown from which she recovered. But it was a turning point in her life where she was like, this defines me. I'm a child of a survivor. And at the time, she was the toast of a town. She had the rap dress. She was 28. She was making millions. And her business was going because the market was oversaturated. So she fucks off to Bali, falls in love with some gorgeous person called Paolo. And it's just, you're just like, I don't know. There's something about the ride that it takes you on. And she's like, yes, this was another of my fantasies. And I don't know, little by little, you just get completely won over and charmed by her ambition, her drive, her confidence. And there's also a real degree of honesty, sort of modesty, but honesty about her relationship with Barry Diller. And Barry Diller's in it, talking about it too. And it's like, they don't do probably what young people want them to do, is say, yes, we're gay. But they're like so candid, in a way that, is just lovely. The interviewer asks her at one point, Andy Warhol apparently said that she gave Barry Diller straightness and that Barry Diller gave her thoughtfulness, and that was why they were together. And so the director asked them what they think about that. And Diane's like, I don't even know what that means. But then she says, no, we give each other power. And I was like,
wow.
Yes, exactly. It was so good. And then Barry Diller is like, Barry Diller's a little more defensive, like, well, I think that's kind of disrespectful. But, you can tell there's real, just something truly profound between them, even if it is a shared sense of moguldom. And of course, there's the QVC story and the Silk assets and how she gets her career back and her company back. She's very raw and honest about her children and not feeling she was there enough for them. And yeah, I really, really, really loved it and recommend it.
I can't wait to watch it. It's been on my radar. I thought it was starting next week. I didn't realize it was already out.
I want to see it. It reminds me, and not they're very different people, but how Jane Fonda seems to have always been on the cutting edge of pop culture her entire life, as does Diane, her own story, but they sort of almost represent or lead everything that happened around them.
They have a Zelig-like quality to be at every important place and at the right time. And I think that's a gift, because, sometimes I think about, I just don't want to be around people. But she would she'd get a cancer diagnosis and go out and party, it's so amazing, really. Let's take a quick break. Our new Netflix series, Owning Manhattan, looking at the glamorous, adrenaline-filled world of high-stakes real estate, begins today. Stars Ryan Serhant, formerly of $1 Million Listings New York, as he opens his business and takes New York and the States, and his ultimate dream, I think, is to be the global real estate mogul of all time. If anyone can do it, I think he can, and it's a great series.
Ryan Serhant is a sexy mofo. And he appeals to all of, he's intellectual, he's smart, he's good looking, and he has surrounded himself with his real group of people, and they are diverse but so sexy and entertaining. It's Ryan all the day, and it's just an incredible ensemble cast. I think the world's going to fall in love with.
As an executive producer, I feel I can't say the sort of slightly lustful thoughts I have in my heart sometimes for Ryan. I think he's so gorgeous and dashing and has this glint in his eye. Yes, let's go to a commercial break. Do you have a question, Blake?
Yes. After Justin Timberlake was taken in for DUI a couple of weeks ago, what Britney Spears song, released in 2011 from her Femme Fatale album, Fenton, re-entered the US iTunes pop chart at number 116?
We'll have the answer for you right after the break here on the Wow Report.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. It's Benson here with James St. James, Tom Campbell, Blake Jacobs. I don't know if the world knows your last name, Blake, but there you go, Blake Jacobs. And you had a question.
Yes. After Justin Timberlake was taken in for DUI a couple of weeks ago, what Britney Spears song, released in 2011 on her Femme Fatale album, re-entered the US iTunes pop chart at number 116? Fenton, you're a Britney fan.
I know I'm going to get it wrong, but is it Toxic?
No, that was on In the Zone.
Oh, that's a good one. I would just say like Freak Show or Circus or something like that, but no, what is it?
Criminal.
Oh.
Quite a moment of Schadenfreude for Britney, don't you think?
Uh-huh.
Just had to get that word in there. We're counting down the top 10 things that made us go wow. We've reached number 7.
Number 7.
I work all the time. Or so it feels. And that's not true. I work and then I go to my bedroom, watch TV, and sleep. So there is time to do other things than work, but I tend to just cocoon. So I'm not blaming work. It's not a work thing. But over this past weekend, even though we have so thankfully here in Southern California not been experiencing the extreme heat and the extreme weather that so many other places in the other United States are, which is frightening to watch. But it was going to be a hot one. And so I had something I had to do with in the Palisades with my friend Greg, and my convertible top had broken, but I got it fixed. That's my next topic. And so we drove down the PCH trying to figure out where to eat. And we stopped at the Malibu Pier. You know where the Malibu Pier is?
Sure.
And I haven't been. The first time I went to the Malibu Pier, digression, it's because I'd read about in People magazine in 1984 that's where, remember when Patrick Duffy left Dallas?
Yeah.
And for that season, and then Larry Hagman made him come to lunch and meet him at this Mexican restaurant on the Malibu Pier, all in People magazine, if he convinced him to come back to Dallas. So that was that last year was a dream thing. So I learned everything from People magazine. And so when I came to LA, I was aware of this restaurant. The one time my parents came to visit in 1987, I brought them there the last day, and we were waiting in line, and we were sort of waiting for, 5 minutes. And we weren't angry at each other, but we were a family. So we're all just kind of shifting our weight and not talking to each other. And then it was sunny outside, dark inside. So everything was kind of backlit. And my mother said, right before we're about to be seated, she goes, "Isn't that woman against the window in profile?" She goes, "Isn't that Olivia Newton-John?" I'm like, "Mom, don't you think if I were here for 5 minutes and I was 20 feet away from Olivia Newton-John, I would know it was Olivia Newton-John?" So I look a little closer, like, well, it's definitely her nose, but I'm not sure. And then the waiter took us and brought us to the table directly beside Olivia Newton-John, who was dining with the gentleman. And my mother
we never heard this story before.
My mother and I took the 2 seats facing Olivia. My poor father didn't know what to do, had his back to Olivia Newton-John, and we weren't cool because we didn't really say anything all lunch. We're just like, yeah. And at one point, Olivia went to the ladies' room, and I couldn't speak. I thought, "Mom, this is your chance." I didn't say this. "Mom, go into the restroom and tell her that your son is a freak for you, and ever come say hello." We did nothing. We were frozen. I met her after that. Anyway, that's the location. That's what that location means to me. But Greg said, "Let's go to the Malibu farm. There's a restaurant right on the road. And then if you walk down the pier where people are still fishing, there's more of a cafe where you order and it comes to your table." Well, we did that. We went, the front part felt like the Grove, overcrowded, long lines, yike. But we walked to the end, we ordered some delicious food, and I sat on the balcony overlooking an unobstructed view of the Pacific Ocean, of the Malibu hills. In this sort of cove are surfers on surfboards. It was the most beautiful thing I've done. And it's like, I could have flown to Nice. I could have been on a cruise ship I just went to Malibu and had the most delightful time. I know, people, I'm not doing a lot. I don't have a lot to talk about, but I found it just so profoundly, and I have my sunburn to prove it.
What did you eat?
Yes.
What did you order?
I had the salmon burger with some roasted vegetables, I believe. And Greg had.
I cannot believe we have been on this show. We have heard every single celebrity interaction you have ever had, and you have gushed about Olivia Newton-John in every episode for 9 years. And this is the first time we are hearing about sitting next to her at lunch.
I was like, I didn't want to meet her as a fan. I kept saying to people, I wanted Olivia to wake up in the morning. I wanted our relationship to be that when Olivia woke up in the morning, the first thing she thought about was like, I've got to call Tom. That's where I wanted our relationship to land. It didn't, but I was like, that was not the time. That was not the time. And during that whole period in the 80s, people, I was very busy and working, and people would be like, someone would be working for charity and says, Olivia's coming to do a voiceover at 10 o'clock. Can you make it? I'm like, I can't, but next time when I meet her, I'll really meet her. So anyway.
Two things. Do you think she noticed that you and your mom were just sitting there sort of,
I hope not.
brainless?
I have a feeling Olivia Newton-John, wherever she went, there was a table next to her gawking. I think that in 1984, after Physical, I think that she was a big enough star that wherever she went, and she just learned to tune it out.
Well, when you met her, did you tell her this story?
I didn't have time. I don't make me tell that whole story again, because I will. But I met her at the Sandy Gallon Dolly Parton Christmas party a few years later.
Now this one we've heard.
I know. I'm not gonna go.
I know, but you didn't. Yeah.
But I didn't mention that. But I mentioned how much I. You know what? I might have mentioned it. I might have mentioned it in the backstory portion of my rant. I'm like that followed the. I'm not dangerous, but it's sick how much I like you. I might have gone into like, I've always played your records. My parents and I saw you at a restaurant where she was scared to say hello. I may have said it. I may have said something there. But again, I've got nothing to offer the world except I loved this city so much. We've talked about this too. And being able to go to Malibu and without much fuss or muss, just sit at the ocean and eat. It gave me some rejuvenation, some spiritual rejuvenation.
You do look refreshed. You
Thank
do.
you. Yeah. And the Malibu farm was a delicious place to go. So there you go.
We'll put some links at worldofwonder.net/wow report so you can know where to go. Number 6, James.
Number 6.
Our SiriusXM Radio Andy comrade, Sandra Bernhard, was in the news this week. I don't know if you guys were following the story. She was on Watch What Happens Live with Andy. And she said that she was not that nice to her co-star Morgan Fairchild when they were on season 5 of Roseanne. She says that it's one of my biggest regrets in life that I wasn't nicer to her. I was a little dismissive of her. She looked directly at the camera and then say, I would like to apologize. I would like to say to Morgan that you were wonderful to work with. You were incredible. We were the first gay couple on television. You were fabulous. I owe you an apology. I adore you. And thank you for putting up with my snotty little attitude. And my first thought when I heard this was, who could not be nice to Morgan Fairchild?
Truly.
Because when you think about it, you think Mork and Mindy, Flamingo Road, Paper Dolls, Falcon Crest, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, The Initiation of Sarah, Fantasy Island, Love Boat. She was, ubiquitous during that period, during the 70s.
And gorgeous and a smart, tough cookie.
And a smart cookie and just and a lovely, lovely person, as we've learned throughout the years. Then I started thinking, you know what? I was a brat for many, many years in the 80s and 90s. I was probably horrible to people and didn't even realize it. And it really speaks to Sandra's character that all these years later, she was able to say, look, I was terrible. I'm so sorry. You did not deserve my snotty little attitude. And I just think that that's a great that we can all keep growing. We can all keep learning from our mistakes.
Has Morgan commented on this?
Yes, Morgan watched the episode, and then Morgan is very active on X in social media, and she said, you were wonderful. I adore you, Sandra, and if you're ever in town, let's go get lunch, let's go have coffee and catch up. And Sandra is in New York. She's in, LA. And they said that the first time they're in the same city together, they are going to get together. And Sandra has been very vocal saying, how wonderful Morgan is.
They should meet in the middle in Lanford, Illinois for loose meat sandwiches at the lunch
That's such
bar.
a great idea. I would tell you all about my close personal time spent with Morgan Fairchild while I work with her, but this show's going on, so I don't want to.
But I do think that Andy should have Morgan on.
He has to.
I mean, it is gold. It is television gold. And when you think about those episodes, it really was groundbreaking. And it was, Sandra Bernhard on TV, Morgan Fairchild, Roseanne, say what you will about Roseanne now, but at the time it was great.
On my social feed, people were saying, people who'd worked in that show, like there was a lot of that going on at Roseanne. So it may have been sort of a toxic, weird kind of bullying environment. But to your point, and I'm still learning this lesson every day, it's like when people are assholes to you, it's about them.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember. It's your image, my immaturity. It's my insecurity. It's my need to like get you before you get me, and it's just like, it's so hard to remember that. It's so easy to like, I don't know, get into it. And, you want to be in toxic free environments, but the world's full of toxic people. You got to like,
and I always am very forgiving of newly famous people. I allow you to be an asshole for about 3 years. You can be that new fame ass jerk brat. You were allowed to have your head turned for about 3 years, and then you got to turn it around and pull it together and start being nice to everyone. But those first couple of years, it is easy to get turned around.
I call it first time famous.
Yeah, first fame. Yeah.
And I won't mention any names, but we've had guest judges on who are just young. And what the thing that strikes me is they're surrounded by 19 people. And Randy will be like,
they're all yes men. Yes.
Yeah, that person is paying all these people. Like you learn how.
And wherever they go, people are throwing themselves and screaming and shouting and and it is so easy to
disorienting at the very least, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think in that world to have the ability to then reflect later on and own up to it, as Tom has seen in a couple of cases too, is just really gracious and amazing. And James, I just have to say to you, you were always so lovely to me. You've only turned nasty lately.
I don't understand because I am so in love with you now. You are you three are the people that I am nicest to on the planet. But if I didn't occasionally talk back or sass or contradict you, where would this radio show be?
No,
I am the one here keeping it live.
You are.
You're Diana Ross. We are the Supremes. I get it.
There you go. All right, we'll move on to number 5.
Number 5.
It's sort of Soviet bus stop time, really, because I have this thing about Japanese woodblock prints.
Yes,
and it's gone to a new level. And I'm here in New York, and at the Brooklyn Museum, they are showing Utagawa Hiroshige's 100 famous views of Edo. And it goes, I didn't know, but Edo was what Tokyo was in the Shogun era. And
I know that from crossword puzzles. Go on.
Well, good for you. And they are sort of 11 by 17 sort of thing.
Is this artist, did he do it during the Edo period, or is he a contemporary artist?
He did it during the Edo period. Okay. He did it shortly before his death in 1857, which was very close to the end of the Shogun era. And he did these 100 views, and they're seen as a sort of the beginning of the modern era of the woodblock print. And I mean, to such an extent, for example, that Vincent van Gogh copied 2 of them, did his own versions of them, and that they had a huge impact on the Impressionist painters like Monet and Degas and Gauguin.
Sure.
And So the Brooklyn Museum, who knew, has a set of 100. They have all of them. In fact, there's actually technically 119. Anyway, I was here with Nolan, and I said, Nolan, we got to go see this. So we went off to the Brooklyn Museum and saw
Which is a lovely time anyway. I love the Brooklyn Museum.
It's an amazing museum.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And it was incredible to see these prints from
Now, are these prints are they of building and architecture, or is it mostly nature, scenic pictures?
Mostly nature with scenes with some people in for scale. But one of the sort of character, I mean, they have this very flat sort of pattern. They also have this very sort of cropped composition feel, and they often have things in the foreground. I mean, they're very sort of precursors of Impressionism, and then, of course, in turn, pop art. So here's the twist. What they did is the Brooklyn Museum reached out to Takashi Murakami, who is the artist. He's famous, I guess, for his Louis Vuitton collaboration of the bags. He has these cartoon characters. He has Dob, who's a sort of Asian Mickey Mouse.
They're like the psychedelic mushrooms with faces and things like that. Yes,
and jelly eyes and flowers and cutesy, kawaii, sort of cutesy stuff. And also a sort of founder of the movement known as Superflat, which is, as the name would suggest, very flat. Anyway, they reached out to him and said, oh, do you want to lend us a couple of works to, they sometimes say to do that, to compare an old artist with a new artist. He is like, no. I am going to recreate all 119 of these. And he silk screened 119 of them. And they are incredible. Not only that, but he also did these 10-foot high silk screens of some of them. And I got to tell you, they are just stunning.
That's it. As a little aside, I don't know if you remember the first week or the first month that you had Nolan. You took us with Nolan and Billy, and we went to see the Murakami exhibit at downtown at the Museum of Modern Art down there.
We did. They're absolutely right.
So Nolan has a Murakami in his genes, basically.
Yes. And I mean that if you do the exhibition is on until I think in August, and it's really spectacular.
But does Murakami upstage the
Do you know what? I think it's so audacious to take something that is literally 11 inches high and make it 10 feet, but they look so stunning, and the colors, because instead of doing a woodblock print, it's all silk screened, and I was sort of amazed that no one's done it before. In a way, they're just incredible.
Well, I think that you are spreading the word of woodblock love on this show. So it's you might just start a trend there.
Trend alert.
House on Fire is our new show that just premiered. It's amazing. 2 episodes already on Wow Presents Plus. First episode is free on YouTube. It follows the lives of the House of Miyake Mugler as they juggle the pressures of competition and mentoring their talented cohort in New York's ballroom scene. People are loving this, really loving this series.
Yes.
And you can sign up for that at wowpresentsplus.com. Blake, have you got a question?
Yes. We all know, or did you guys know that Inside Out 2 is doing gangbusters at the box office?
Yeah, it's the biggest movie of the year so far, isn't it?
Doing better than its predecessor.
100 million or something, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in 2018, this Pixar sequel that was released 14 years after the original did better at the box office than its predecessor because of the usual family moviegoers, but also because of millennials who had seen the original film when they were younger, much like Inside Out 2 has been for Gen Z because it's 9 years later. So what's the 2018 Pixar film that I'm talking about?
Oh, God. Oh. We'll have the answer for you right after the break here on the Wow Report.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with Tom and James and Blake.
And we were talking about how Inside Out 2 has done so well. In 2018, this Pixar sequel that was released 14 years after the original did better at the box office than its predecessor, much like Inside Out 2 has done for Gen Z, thanks to millennials going back to see the sequel. What was that movie? in 2018. Pixar.
I'm bad on Pixar movies because it's not Toy Story because there's 3 of those.
It's not
There's
like the
like
car
4.
one. It's not Up.
I don't
It's
feel like
not
Up had a sequel. Down. I don't think it did.
Monsters Inc. There's
could
which
be
is
Cars.
Frozen Pixar? No, Frozen is
Cars.
It's from-
Cars. We're in on Cars. Cars.
Cars.
It's The Incredibles.
Oh, of course. God, I love The Incredibles. That was good. That's
They're
the one
incredible.
with the Edith.
Yeah, and the really fun roller coaster
Hmm.
at Disneyland.
Remember the Edith head character?
Mm-hmm. Love her. Elliot went to see Inside Out 2 and loved it. And he brought me back a badge. This is what he brought me.
You are ennui. Oh my god.
Yes.
That's
He
the one
said-
that reminds him of you.
He said, Daddy, it's you. And I'm like, and I said, well, what does ennui mean to you, Elliot? Because I was quite impressed he was doing ennui. He said, unfun.
On the mouth of babes. I do want you to check in after the show's over. Go to the DMV and see if you can get that on your license plate. I think that would be very hot.
I think that should just be your World of Wonder badge. There's a picture on your badge because it looks exactly like you.
No, I mean, I have to
Purple
own it.
complexion.
I'm a little like Eeyore and Winnie. He got me
Eeyore.
right? It's terrible.
Ennui.
We're counting down the top 10 things of the week that made us go, wow. We've reached number 4. Tom.
Number 4.
Bonfire of the Vanities, that Tom Wolfe
Yeah.
novel, right? You know, I've read very few books. I read that and I loved it. And that was all about what happens when you get off at the wrong exit and then the whole world can go wrong, right? Over like that. The city you think you know that you rule, boom, takes you away. I had a very similar experience. I had just finished speaking at an FYC Emmy panel where the queens of RuPaul's Drag Race season 16 performed I've Got the Power. I was sitting with Jamal and Michelle and the queens, and it happened at this is all Michael Fabien, his incredible team at MTV, but they took over the Culver City Library, and you know, reading is fundamental. And there was the bus, the Astoria bus was outside, the big gay bus. So it was a blast. It was full of fans. It was hard not to feel not swollen head, but you just feel good. It was a moment of celebration. I actually left the set to go there. I'm driving home. It's like, you know, it's not dark. I'm driving up. I'm talking to my sister on La Cienega from Culver City. I'm driving up and I get to La Cienega just south of Santa Monica. Okay, just south. And I live probably half a mile from there. But my car just goes, stops, boom. I'm like, what? And I put on my flashers and I can't shift. I can't start it. I can't do anything. I saw my sister who didn't really grasp what was going on. I'm like, I got to go. I think she was sick of talking to me at that point. And people just thought I was an asshole in a black BMW who was double parked. So like,
Two things can be true.
yes, that's true. I mean, it was frightening, a cacophony of noise and danger. I thought, well, I guess I'll stay in my car. I'm like, no, I'm not going to stay in my fucking car. They're going to kill me. So I got out of my car. I go on the sidewalk. I call AAA, thinking that I'm all set. I'm all done. It's now like 6:40 or something, and they say that a tow truck will be there by 10:30 p.m.
Oh my
God.
So I put in the request, and then I think, well, all right, that's all I can do at that moment. And there's no place to sit. There's a homeless guy sleeping. I'm all of a sudden I am in a location I drive by, you know, all the time. I am now seeing it from the sidewalk. And the one thing, and this is where pizza always helps, the Domino's pizza that I order delivery from happens, the home base happens to be within that block. So I walk to the Domino's pizza, order a small gluten-free pepperoni pizza, and I said to the woman checking me out, I said, I order from here all the time. Now I know where the magic is made. And then a woman turns around, she hears my voice. It's the woman who delivers to my apartment. She's like, hello, how are you? Oh, to be recognized by your pizza delivery woman. She's very sweet, by the way. I walk up, I walk up and down. I'm waiting for the pizza to get done. I'm sitting on steps of an old building, and people are asshole, or just like for a long time. So I come out with my pizza, and what appears to be a homeless woman goes, that looks good. I'm like, would you like some pizza? And we shared the pizza. I should have given her the pizza, but I wasn't smart enough. But I gave her some pizza. I'm now eating with no napkins. I'm eating the pizza. I'm waiting. I'm negotiating with AAA to get someone there sooner, and it doesn't seem it's happening. And they said, have you called the police? I'm like, why should I call? Like, give me some point. So they said for traffic control. So I called the police. It's not LA. It's not West Hollywood. It's LA. I get transferred. Eventually, one of those little parking people comes up to give me a ticket because they think I'm an asshole and a black BMW double parking. But he gets there, and I'm like, I go, my car's broken. He goes, well, why don't you get out of the road? I go, I can't shift it. So he puts his little flashing car, and we become friends. And he's like helping me, and he's diverting traffic. But it's now an hour or two later. Then another car shows up with these two beautiful, curvaceous black women who are like, what's going on? They're just like, they have a game. Like, I can call somebody and get a tow truck here. And they call it, it'll cost you $160. I'm like, oh, that's good. You want some pizza? No, we'd rather have wings. So anyway, we're becoming friends. And then AAA says, we're going to send a thing. And so a truck goes by, it stops. And it's got this thing that goes under your thing and pushes you over. And I said, are you AAA? And the guy said, no, but I can move your car to the side of the street. And then I tried to Venmo him, and he's like, no, it's on me. So the goodness of people came through. And then finally the tow truck came. I talked to this guy. He drove me. He ended up driving me home. His kid just graduated from high school in Downey. We had this best thing. We get to the back of the BMW where I was told to drop it off at 7:00 when I called them and leave the keys in a box. And this guy did not feel comfortable. The tow driver. I've never done this before. And so I called Nita, the crazy #1 salesman at BMW who works until 9:30. She's the only one there. She's Iranian. She used to date Wilt Chamberlain. She's always trying to sell me a car. I'm like, Nita, it's Tom. Where do I leave my car? And she tells me what to do. And I end up getting driven home by the guy. And, thousands of dollars later, I have my car. It's been fixed. And I had this really kind of warm community time, but I felt very vulnerable. I was no longer anybody special. I was no longer had just the basic protections of my car in LA, but people came through, and I dealt with it like it was meeting new friends versus.
But look how gracious you were. It's like, so what could have been a Bonfire Vanities nightmare was a bonfire of loveliness. Shared
well, I was going to say this was anti-Bonfire of the Vanities.
But I felt vulnerable for lots of it. But I decided to deal with it that way. But it was a good.
What time did you get home?
I think I was home by 10.
With the car.
It was all through text. I think the battery died and they had to do something, but also my top had broken. This is my low mileage, barely driven because I've been traveling around the world in COVID, 2018 BMW.
Well, I'll tell you a very quick secret, and I know we got to move on, but with the Tesla, it's a battery car and you charge it. There is a battery inside the Tesla, a little itty bitty battery that controls everything, and that will go flat. And that battery you cannot recharge, and your car is just bricked. It just bricks. It's like, really?
Well, they overestimated by $1,000 at BMW. So when you actually pay the huge arm and a leg thing, you're like, oh, thank you so much. What a discount. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, we got to move on, Blake. Let's move on. Number 3, James.
Number 3.
Number 3, I promise not to do a House of the Dragons a recap every single week, and I won't this week, but I do want to talk a little bit about it. Are those House of the Dragon glasses? Why are you doing that?
I was just sort of having my eyes.
Are you trying to pull focus? Is that what you're doing?
Whoop! I was just experimenting.
Anyway,
this is not the Muppet Studio move. It's move. It says
no, it isn't.
Oh.
I've changed my mind. Mind because the episode was really amazing this week. But there was something that I wanted to talk a little bit about because there's a character on this show named Sarah Kristen Cole. And Sarah Kristen Cole, S-E-R. They don't have sirs. There's S-E-R. Sarah Kristen Cole. Sarah Kristen Cole is one of the biggest assholes on television. I mean, he is one of the most loathsome characters I have ever come across in any series. He is every time he is on the screen, you want to throw a shoe at the screen. And I am not alone in this. When you go on X or Insta or Facebook or anything, people are just, they are up in arms about what a horrible, horrible, horrible man this is. And everything he does is just self-serving, and he's just lies, and he's just, I mean, just awful, awful, awful. But the thing is that it's played by this actor named Fabien Frankel, who is not only the most gorgeous man on television. I mean, when I say he has these gooey, velvety brown eyes and this curly, mop of curly hair, and he's just handsome. He plays a knight on the show. But he looks like a knight in real life. He's just, I mean, stunning and so sweet and so funny. And you see him on his Instagram and on his Facebook and Twitter and everything. And he is so adorable. I mean, like, there could not be a bigger contrast between the character he plays and the person that he is. And there's all these behind the scenes things where everybody's punking him and he's just sort of goofy. He's just a big goofball. He's a puppy dog is what he is.
Is this the one whose wiener we saw this week?
No, I don't think we saw his ass. We've seen his ass. I don't think I've seen his wiener yet. I would have known.
Oh, maybe it's a future episode.
How dare you assume that James has not seen his wiener?
I know, yes. But anyway, the thing is that the character is so awful and loathsome that he gets hate online on X. He has been barraged by it, and he's had to turn off all his social media because it's gotten so bad, and he's getting rocks and tomatoes thrown at him in the streets. People are just horrible. And it's that thing, that soap opera thing where the villains can't go to the grocery store because the little old ladies yell at them, and people are not able to differentiate the character from the actor. And it's very sad because, like I said, he is one of the great stars to come out of the show, and not since probably King Joffrey on Game of Thrones has there been a character as horrible as this person. It just goes to show what a talented actor he is, that he can do this, but also that George R.R. Martin has an ability to write just these I mean, things that get your blood boiling. He's just so evil and rotted and just horrible. So fuck Kristen Cole and God bless the actor Fabien Frankel.
I love that. All right, number two. Word up. Sometimes like Instagram, the algorithm has started sending me words, and I learned a new word. Pebbling. Do you know what pebbling is? I love pebbling.
I just learned about it this week too, so you aren't that far behind me.
It's little signs of love and affection gifted to a friend or a loved one that you think they might enjoy. Little memes or gifts or social media videos that you send to someone in the hope that it might brighten their day.
Fenton, you were a frequent pebbler because you were always sending little things that you think will like.
Right, all my relationships are parasocial. That's another word I learned. Parasocial, where it's not real. It's just online. And I'm always sending James things about pickles. So I'm not sure that that's friendly. And that leads me to my.
And you sent me those awful spider earrings too. Dear God in heaven, what are you trying to terrify me? What is going on?
That, and I always send you
anti-pebbling. This is bouldering.
Bouldering. And I send Tom little kitty cat things every now and then, but I try to keep it under control because I think that might get a little tiresome. But then
I get 4-letter words with exclamation points at the end.
Yeah, all in uppercase.
Yeah.
Another word is Smonday. Now, Smonday is that time of day on a Sunday when the dread of Monday sets in. I know that's Monday feeling, around 3:00 in the afternoon.
They have it's Manic Monday, Tuesday Terrors, and I think there's a Sunday Sadness or something. But yes, there is. It is
Smonday. That's what it's called.
It's a real thing.
Yeah. And lastly, the last word is my own invention, Oreno. It is to describe disgusting flavors of things that no one needs. Inspired by Oreo introducing Sour Patch Kids flavored limited edition.
Let's not forget the glory days of the Wow Report when we used to do live Oreo taste testings, blindfolded taste testings.
That's right. I think there's even now, Tom, a ketchup flavored Oreo.
Oh.
It's like no. Oreo.
Do you guys know that you can, through Oreo, you can still you can personalize Oreos now? You can like have pictures or logos put on like special ones that you order. Because I did that because we were really into Oreos right before COVID. So I made a bunch of them with the Wow Report and stuff. And then COVID came and we were virtual. So I just ate them.
Because I don't remember getting that. One more break. And then when we come back, the number one thing this week that made us go, wow, I tell you, it's very special. You want to stay tuned for this.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. Fenton here with Blake and Tom and James.
Woo!
Who's going to reveal this week's number one.
Number one.
Yes, this week we've started Night Fever, our podcast with Randy and Fenton and I, in which we talk to legends of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. But we have a very special Pride episode, a bonus episode that we start things off with. And we talk to a drag historian by the name of Alyssa Max Goodman, who has written a book called Glitter and Concrete, A Cultural History of Drag in New York City. And the conversation is just fascinating. We start off talking about very famous drag kings of the 19th century who were superstars in their days. Women like Ella Wexner, Annie Hindle, Kitty Donner, Gladys Bentley. We talk about some of the drag queens, Julian Eltange and Bert Savoy, who were very famous in the teens and 20s, and they were as big as RuPaul is today. She goes as far as to say that they were, like Tom Cruise level of superstardom, and we just don't know them anymore. They've sort of been lost to history. So we talk about them. We talk about the pansy craze of the 1920s. We talk about the early history of Harlem drag balls. We talk about the lavender scare of the 1950s. We go up to Stonewall, but we spend a great deal of time talking about these characters who it's just fascinating. And it went up on Wednesday, so you can find it now on wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, or you can watch it on Wow Presents Plus. And it's just fascinating.
And then next week we start the actual season.
And then next week we start for real with episode 1, in which we talk to heiress, musician, and just all around gorgeous Daphne Guinness is our first guest. So
I love that song, No Joke, from her album. Oh my God, what a banger!
Yeah, some of the songs are really good. The videos with David LaChapelle, we talk about her relationship with David LaChapelle, her friendships with Alexander McQueen and Isabella Blow. That is just an interesting, all-around fascinating episode. So it's a really spectacular season this year. We've posted all the guests on my social medias and Fenton's as well. So
Susan Seidelman,
yes,
Ann Magnuson,
Richie Rich,
Zaldi,
Mr. Mickey. I mean, legends.
Yeah, Lauren Ozersky, BB Buell, who is just, so fabulous. 70s rocker chick.
Richie Rich. Yeah, and Dustin Pittman.
Dustin Pittman and Trace Beagle, of course.
Of course. Well, that's all we got time for this week.
I don't think I spent enough time talking about my car breakdown. Can I go back to that?
Well, I'm glad you're safe with us. That's good that you made it out alive.
Thank you.
That's all we got time for this week. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Blake, and thank you, James, and thank you, Tom.
Mwah.
Same place, same time next week. Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go.
Wow.